Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so today is the day new Battlegrounds season starts and we need to take a look at the meta, what we expect to happen in the said metas and how it's going to look like in my opinion, which champions are going to be the best and MVPs and which champions might not be so great. And as always, this first video is meant for victory track because that is where virtually everybody starts. And then we're going to be taking a look at Gladiator Circuit weeks 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 later on. The video for Gladiator Circuit specifically, because this time it really will have to be a different video, because these metas ultimately are fundamentally different. Because in Gladiator Circuit, we get the buff 0 to hero. Every 15 seconds, defender gains an indestructible buff and unblockable buff for 5 seconds. These buffs are paused indefinitely unless the attacker is close to the defender. That buff entirely changed the entire meta because there are hardly any fights ever that you can nuke down in 15 seconds. And if you don't, then it's going to be a problem. Obviously, you're going to be significantly slower than if you can get rid of these buffs with like Mystic neutralizes and nullifies. So that strongly shifts the balance. However, as far as victory track is concerned, I'm just going to be brutally honest. It's a nothing meta. It's basically a nothing meta. Your Mystic champions are going to be slightly more powerful than they normally are because they will have access to extra buffs and neutralize. Cool. So they're going to be able to take a few matchups that they otherwise maybe wouldn't. They're going to be faster in whichever matchups they can take. For most part, there are no nodes. For most part, when you're going to be fighting in Battlegrounds, victory track, season 16, it's going to be arena fights. Yeah, your opponent is going to gain some fury buffs now and then, and there are, a couple of champions where that will be relevant. And then for each buff, they will have extra attack on them, so chip damage from some champions might be bigger. But other than that, it's going to be about as nuky, straightforward meta as we can see. So, what does that mean? Obviously, some Mystic champions will get the advantage, and it's also important to point out which ones won't. For instance, these nodes themselves, they don't really help, Absorbing Man or Mojo offensively, because those are permanent buffs with no expiry, so they will not even feed the Mystic Dispersion when they go away. So those champions basically get no benefit. Also, the offensive node, which I forgot to read out. So, let's just do the things in proper order. So in victory track, whenever a Mystic attacker nullifies a buff on the defender, they inflict a neutralized passive for 30% potency for 20 seconds, max 3. Whenever a buff on the defender is prevented by these neutralizes, the attacker passively gains 3% of their max power. Okay, cool. Then, while the attacker is close to the defender gains a fury buff every 3 seconds, increasing their attack by 10%. Staying away from the defender causes these fury effects to gradually fall off. And additionally, the defender gains 25% attack for each buff on them. Again, there's nothing that affects the fight mechanics. There is nothing that affects which champions you can put in the deck. So it is as open and straightforward meta as possible. Again, as I mentioned, some Mystic champions will obviously get benefit from this. For instance, like Diablo. For Diablo, it is quite important to have buffs to nullify in order for you to be able to stop the poisons, get your level 3 quicker, finish the fights quicker. Right, Kushala, for instance, is going to be better off because she gains power whenever opponent gains a buff. So she's going to be more deadly as ever, and she's going to have extra buffs to nullify. Similar to like Longshot, he's going to have a chance to nullify those furies. And you can just, Chavez is going to have somewhat increased attack as well because opponent will have buffs. Obviously, Juggernaut is going to be an absolute menace because he's going to be even bigger nuke than he is. So he's going to get to his level 2s quicker if he's awakened. That is a big if. Otherwise, he's still perfectly viable. So Kushala, a Longshot that's going to be happy. Tiger is going to be just as happy as she normally is. Hood is going to be doing a great job because of his staggers and Fate Seal, getting to his level 2s more often, thus having more invisibility, thus being able to, do a lot more than he normally would. And obviously there are more Mystic champions that would work, for whatever reason. If you love Dr. Voodoo, have a rank 6-star, rank 5 ascended, Dr. Voodoo is going to be having a good time. But for most part, you're looking for nullifies, basically, in the Mystic class. And if you don't have nullifies, then neutralizes are, nice as well. Symbiote Supreme is going to be doing great. Spidey Supreme is also going to be quite happy when opponents getting extra buffs, because you will obviously be able to ramp up quicker. But there we are. So Mystics as a class are going to be slightly better than they normally are, but it's not going to be like they all of a sudden rule this meta, unlike in Gladiator. Gladiator Circuit. Always, whenever there is a Mystic class, quote-unquote, supremacy, there has to be a Science class. And on almost every meta, one thing that I have noticed with this Kabam's new direction, where, you know, there is a clear advantage given to one class, you kind of form a triangle where you have this primary class, which is supported, in this case Mystic. Then you typically have quite large selection of the opposing class that they are weak against in order to counter them, Science, and then the third class kind of switches in order to counter the Science, for most part. So, you know, Photon, immunity neutralized, so he can completely take care of that global as such, and, you know, not too many Mystic champions are going to do well against Photon. We can have somebody like Mr. Negative that might be quite a niche choice, but I doubt he's going to do too well on defense. Overseer, though. But these are more for Gladiator Circuit, like, relevant champions. You know, we're still going to see our definite Titania is going to have a good time. There's going to be lots of Mystic champions flying around. She can stall on defenses by herself. You know, Cassie should have quite a good time as well. But besides that point, past that mark, it's just going to be your regular Battlegrounds champions. You know, we're going to have our Korgs, we're going to have our Killmongers. You know, from tech class, it's probably going to be like Shuri and Fam. That's most important. Galen is like the one champion, or one of the very few champions that actually does get scarier on defense with the defensive tactic, because, you know, when you hit him, he's going to be starting to gain buffs, and if he gains these buffs, he can just randomly enter Harvest and you can take damage. But at the same time, Galen's going to get absolutely nuked by virtually any and all of the Mystics. His Nullify immunity is not going to save him there, and yeah, I doubt we're going to see too much. We're probably going to see some Maestros, because lots of people have them ranked up. But yeah, it is just going to be, you know, bring in your highest ranked Battlegrounds champions, your Korgs, your Archangels, your Torches, your, you know, CGRs and whatever other nukes we have, and go for it. It's about as straightforward meta as we have had this year, so not too much task there. Now, obviously, if we do take a look at the Gladiator Circuit meta, there some things will be significantly more important because of the 0 to hero node. There, you know, many of the fights will be virtually impossible to compete unless you have a proper counters that does address these buffs. Because in any vanilla situation, if you're going up against your opponent, both of you, you know, have, let's say, equal defensive champion, and one of you has an attacker that can get rid of these indestructible and unblockable buffs, and the other one of you does not have a champion like that, well, then it's completely different ballgame, and there's like no chance in winning that. Additionally, everything that I said about Mystic champions in the beginning of this video for the Gladiator Circuit does not apply anymore, because 0 Hero introduces you 2 buffs every 15 seconds that does have an expiry timer. So champions like Absorbman, like Mojo, and what have you, do benefit from it significantly by being able to reduce the durations of the indestructibles and unblockables, as well as feeding the Mystic Dispersion from it. So yeah, this time around, Gladiator Circuit and Victory Track metas will look completely different, in my opinion. Or at least they should, in theory. But that is just about it. I will be making the Gladiator Circuit video tomorrow, because, you know, in the day one, not many will get to the Gladiator Circuit to begin with. It's going to give me a bit more chance to experience this meta in its weaker form and see what's happening here, and all that other good stuff. Now, I do hope that there are plenty of people still playing Battlegrounds, because obviously Kabam did not do a great job revamping the Paragon store, and did not update the solo event milestones, which is absolutely abysmal and criminal. But whatever, I'll still do my part, because ultimately, if you do want to play Battlegrounds, I do want to help you do better. And here we are. That is it for today's video. And as I said, stay tuned for tomorrow's one, where we're going to be talking about the Gladiator Circuit meta. See you later, guys. Bye-bye. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have